This conference will now be recorded.
Appreciate the warning.
It's 3:02. I'm going to call the meeting of April 21st of the Gateway Services Community Development District to order. What was that? I heard a yell. Call it to order and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Point of order, if you have cell phone, please silent it or put it on vibrate for the meeting. Those that are online, if you would stay muted until we get to a recognition, and then we'll switch over for a discussion. I think the first order of business present today, Flavia Walsh and Bob Geppert, myself, Ed Tinkle, along with our attorney, Tony Pierce, and Laura Leroy, our interim district manager. We need a motion to approve having both Bill and, have we got Doug on board?
Full
Both of
participation.
them
I'm
on,
here. Yeah, full participation, finding exceptional circumstances.
that's what I thought. Yeah. We need a motion to that. It's as if we haven't done it before.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. I guess those two don't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Bill, you and Doug both in on board
Yes,
now?
we're in. Thank you.
Now we
Great,
can,
Yep.
great.
you're correct.
Now we're cooking. Let's get on. Do we have members of the public?
I have two. And I'd just like to remind everybody that we have a 5-minute limit. We have a very tight timeline for the meeting today, so we'll be a stickler about the 5 minutes. First is Margaret Feinberg. She has 4 things. Lake number 60 and completed lakes, storm drain cleaning, sidewalk repair, and hedge trimming in Stony Brook.
I'll make them all quick. Won't need the 5 minutes. Margaret Feinberg for the record, Stony Brook at Gateway. I wanted to ask about the repairs on Lake 60, and I wondered if anybody is going back and inspecting the lakes that have already been done to make sure that none of those need inspection, that they need any repairs, because it's important to stay ahead of those repairs. And I know I've got the green fabric showing in spots behind my house, and there's other spots on the lake. So.
Staff was to identify the ponds that have a fabric showing issue, and we're going to be getting stone to get on those. And Elle's shaking her head, so I'm assuming that all of the ponds that have been inventoried to know where we have that liability.
Okay.
That is critical. We got to get those done.
Thank you. And storm drain cleaning. I know that we had tried to set up a schedule at one time and have funding for it, so that like 20% of the Gateway would be done every year. So we'd get back around to the communities that we started with. And it was 2017, or actually it was 2016, the last time that Stony Brook was done. So I was wondering, where are we on that schedule?
Last I heard, no, we don't have anybody here that would know, I guess. Elle, you know, the last I heard, Basin 5, all the storm sewers are complete.
Correct.
Now, I don't think that's inclusive. I'm glad you said that, because I'd already forgot what I was going to talk about today. Manhole cleaning, and whether they were cleaned or whether they weren't cleaned. This last year has been disaster. His last 2 months has been a disaster with oak leaves. Our sewers
With
and
what?
our manhole, oak leaves.
Okay.
Oak leaves. Our manholes are, storm inlets are loaded with organics, and they need to be cleaned. But to answer your question, for Elle, do you have update on Stony Brook storm sewers? Yeah, please.
Hi, Margaret. Elle Harris, Gateway Stormwater. Yes. Actually, we just got our bid packages back and opened them yesterday for the video inspection of Basin 4. I believe Stony Brook is actually in Basin 3.
3, yeah.
I have been going down there and checking. I had a couple of residents email me some pictures from the last rain event. When I went and checked and looked at the pictures, it was basically leaves.
Yeah.
Tree leaves was stacked up on top of the storm drain and was slowing the drainage. But when I probed the drain, and the pipes coming into and going out of the drain. There wasn't a lot of buildup in the pipes themselves. Now, the organics in the bottom of that sump, yes, I'm sure there are.
I think we need to be looking and maybe going around and looking at all the basins,
Yes,
because I know Basin 5, I've had people ask me, when are you going to do them? We did the cleaning of those pipes. We got the videos, we got everything. But what they're seeing are the storm sewer inlets. And again, it's the street runoff and predominantly oak leaves.
When,
But
when,
we
when,
got to get this.
when
get
we're
those
talking about stormwater system, I'd just like to remind everybody, there's three major components in this. One is the catch basins, or what Ed is referring to, the manholes. The second are the pond interconnects. And those are the major connecting points from pond to pond. And then the third is the interconnecting stormwater piping. They're attached to and are part of the catch basin. But in Pelican, we kind of do it in three steps. We have an annual sort of a catch basin, or on a rotating schedule. Depending upon the severity of what we find, we may or may not go into the internal piping between that catch basin and wherever it goes, the depository. That's kind of rare now that we know they're all clean. And then the other step, of course, is the pond interconnect, which doesn't really relate to stormwater, but yet it does, because it balances the ponds. So I know we did catch basin 5. And then, as Elle said, we're now going to look at catch basin 4, but this is the foundation upon which to set up the future schedule.
Okay.
Yeah,
And Pelican does it every 5 years.
Yeah, well, we signed an agreement with South Florida Water Management District that we do every 10 years. Theory is 10% a year, such that every 10 years you've done a complete sweep. And that was the last schedule that I heard we were on. We're certifying that we're doing that. And I think the fact that we're
That's a whole
starting,
lot better than nothing.
it's a lot better than nothing.
And we got it down to a 4-year schedule that stays within the budget and doesn't break the bank, and we get everything done.
But I think there's a differentiation between the inlets and the pipe itself.
Mhm.
The inlets can clog up.
Yes,
quickly,
catch basins must be done as rapidly as you can. Absolutely.
And because there's a buffer in there, a plate, a weir,
Yep.
that somewhat helps us for a while to keep stuff from floating and going on downstream. But we need to get those in.
And we're archiving the data, because no two catch basins are the same. Some are 60 inches, some are, 23 inches. So you need to understand, if a volume is going in, you come back more frequently.
We might,
But yeah,
staff might want to take and do an inventory of the catch basins, just the inlets themselves, to see where we're at. I don't think it's all of them, but in Gateway Greens, there are a lot of them that are, I mean, they are choked with
Yeah.
leaves, just choked.
Can I mention one thing? Street sweeping helps that a lot.
Yeah, we street sweep very often, but not as much as was needed this past 2 months. It's $1,500 every time they do the circuit in Gateway. And
yeah,
it's
we do
pretty
the
salty.
same thing. And it's better than nothing, but it's not a panacea.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Or especially when they blow the yard right after the street sweeper goes by and it's right back out
The
the street.
landscapers.
Yeah,
So today, another thing, so today Jim and I and Freddie, we actually talked about the oak leaves mainly in pine wood, right? And we're talking about what could we do? And then I think for us, we're looking at maybe a once a month below the leaves that are on the grass to the road, and have the size, the
'em
sweeper
up.
that they picked it up at
We
least
could
once a
coordinate
month.
that better. We don't do that.
Yeah, because it's pretty bad on that. There's a few communities that are worse than others where the mature leaves are, trees are. But we did talk about that today.
we have to beg to get the street sweeper out. They're so busy. Beg.
How much do they do for 1,500?
I'm sorry,
Well, how much do they do for 1,500?
How many miles?
13 miles, 26 double miles, because you got curved both sides, 26 miles.
Jim, I have no idea what they do in Pelican. We just get the bill. We just haven't investigated.
But we need to be checking that, because the inlets are bad.
And I asked because I know, and I heard that Elle had gone out, but we actually had, road flooding on Bluestone and Stony Brook, which surprised me, because there should be plenty of,
Capacity.
Right.
yeah. I
This isn't the
said,
time
hey,
you want to hear about flooding.
No.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
If you're flooding, there's a
check that
problem.
out. And I wanted to inquire about sidewalk repair. I thought that the CDD had purchased a concrete mixer and had the capability of replacing squares of sidewalk if they needed to be broken out and replaced.
You mean like point repairs?
No, I did, I talked to, we had talked about doing that originally, and right now with the way that we have staff, we don't have enough staff to pull off the utility work to go do that, and that's the team that was doing it. So I had given Joe a couple of names of some places that would do the smaller, like 1 square.
Yeah, we've
repairs for
got
you guys.
3 or 4 of them
But
that
it's
we
better
need
to
to have
just like get
done.
them all done at once. But
Right.
we don't have staff right now to go out and do that.
Do we have the equipment?
We have a concrete mixer, but we don't have the time to, we don't have
Okay,
bandwidth.
it's a labor issue.
Yes, it's a labor issue.
Okay.
So what, are we going to sub it to somebody?
Yeah.
Okay,
And I did give him names of a couple of places he could call.
Okay,
so let me ask you, let me just jump into that question, because I brought this up when we started doing the part, and that's another item that we addressed it at our walk today. There are some areas in Gateway that we having the same issue. Like-
Yep, Elle is having Rick, she identified some of the worst areas, and Rick has been tasked with driving around and documenting where those are, so we can have someone come and look at that. So we may be able to loop in, I don't know if we could loop in.
if we
some of
can
your repairs.
piggyback on that, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yes, we should have something in the next couple of weeks. Next week, he's, yeah.
Yeah, you drive a gator or a golf
Yeah,
cart
yep.
around, your backside will
document
tell
where
you
it
where the
is.
bumps are at.
Exactly.
You'll feel them.
Yes, we may be able to piggyback on that, Don.
Okay.
A lot of times it's a staging thing, that's the cost, so.
And then that's what I was thinking, that would help
Mm-hmm.
and make them want to come for not $1,000 worth of,
Right,
but
Right.
maybe 5.
right.
And last but not least is hedge trimming, and I can probably get this answer from Elle. Some of the hedges in Stony Brook are so bad that you actually have to get out into the intersection to see down the road. Yeah, line of sight has gotten really bad.
It's common area maintenance,
So,
common area maintenance.
This
It's
is-
not private property hedges,
No,
it's common
no.
area.
yeah, so I know it's been a while since those Mainscape has trimmed those hedges.
Yeah, we went through there with Kathy and we identified all the areas where you can't see down.
And I knew you had done that, but when
We're waiting on
will
the
that,
order.
when will that
Ask your
happen?
board.
It's not a board issue. This is
It's not been
CBD
approved.
issue.
It's not been approved. Y'all pay for it.
That it comes out of the 004 fund.
Right, but the SBAC has to approve anything we spend out of the 004 fund for Main Street.
So I need to get a hold of Joe.
Yes.
You
Okay.
want my back?
Because I mean, it's really dangerous in a couple of
Yeah,
areas.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Go
may,
out there and you Run over the people that are walking.
yeah, my concern
Hold on a
is,
second.
as you all know, is the exposure liability.
Yes, there
There's
is.
Obviously, line of sight issue.
That's a major issue.
I would suggest recognizing the normal operational characteristics of asking the
What's the
Stony
cost?
Brook Advisory Committee to make a recommendation. These kind of issues can result in some serious issues.
And it doesn't need to wait
Exposure.
30 days for a
That's
meeting.
correct.
Somebody needs to get,
And this should not be additional charge for this. This is part of the Mainscape contract, trimming those bushes so many times per year. It hasn't been done in a while.
Sorry to interrupt you. Are you talking about the cocoa plums? Some of the
This is,
cocoa
I
plums,
think,
and
the one,
because the contract does tell like the height that there must be at. So if they're not at that height, it should be included in the contract. It's because they're neglecting year over year, and now it may be a harsh trim. But if they were doing the maintenance, then it wouldn't be a harsh trim. So I'll be opposed to paying any extra for that work.
why don't we just go to Freddie and say, hey, let's get this stuff done and give them the point. It's basically point fixes, not a
Yeah.
whole row
Yeah.
of people at intersections.
And if I could just make a statement really quick, if you guys don't mind. And I think what we need to do is we need to identify those areas where your visual might be obstructed through hedges in common areas. And let's just make sure that Mainscape is keeping an eye on those, because those should be maintained regularly because of the liability that they hold.
Yeah.
Through the contract.
Well, yeah, and again, from the standpoint of, my recommendation is not to delay any further the implementation
Get
to
it
get the
done.
line of sight, because as you know, it's both horizontal and vertical, the requirements for that. And now that we've had staff say there's an issue, acknowledge that there's huge exposure.
Yeah, let's get Mainscape and Freddie out there. to get that done.
Yeah, and Tony, what I would probably say, and maybe for Jim too, is, the frequency of them being cut is not based on a timing, like a frequency of every so month. It's based on the growth of the hedges. So once they get to a certain height and it could be considered obstruction, that's when it needs to be cut. So it needs to be monitored in that frequency, as opposed to we do it every so many months, because that's, growth patterns could change. So I think that's what I'd like to look at.
Yeah, and I guess one consideration, I was just talking to Supervisor Walsh. The question is, how does the contract read? But regardless if the contract says you need to maintain a certain height and depth and consistent with standards for line of sight, this is still, I think, an item that requires immediate attention. And next time the specs are prepared, that's something.
It's a liability issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next.
All right, we have Matt
The
Chitwood,
operational part,
who has budget, community appearance, and tree replacement plan.
not stepping in.
Good afternoon, board. Matt Chitwood, Gateway Greens, Mahogany Run. Real quick on the upcoming budget cycle, I would like to see you guys come into this budget cycle with the mentality of how we're gonna maybe reduce taxes or reduce the CDD fees that we're coming into this year. In the last couple of years, we've come out right off the bat with a double increase and then parsed it down to still an increase, but I'd like us to think about how can we reduce the tax this year. And I know I'm going to hear people don't understand that this place costs money. I understand that it costs money, but let's maybe we can work together with some of our community members to figure out where we can start cutting some things to lessen the impact. I think as we go into this next year, next couple of years, I think we've got some larger issues as a country and everything to be worried about. So the more we can start looking at that now, I think we should. Community upkeep and appearance is my second topic I'd like to discuss. So I'm kind of along some of the same issues. I think I've heard the board several times throughout the year talk about accountability and holding the people that are supposed to be doing things accountable, whether it be Mainscape, which I think we spend a significant amount of money with. But on that appearance issue, the center, the heart of Gateway, Gateway proper, really right there, Gateway and Griffin, we've got a whole long row in the median of oak trees and median that just looks absolutely terrible. I'm sure everybody, I drive by it 4 to 6 times a day. It was brought up, I think, at the last meeting that the irrigation had been turned off because of anticipated work that was going to be done with the roundabout and stuff that had been done before that. But I had noticed these, the state of it, 4 or 6 weeks ago, made some calls, found out a little bit more, but it's now in a state of really bad shape, and they're not going to be doing those repairs for 6, 7, or those in construction for 6 months from now. And I don't think we all want to look at deadness for the next few months. I know you've made some.
Yeah, what is the status of that? I thought we brought that up the last meeting. What is taking so long to turn that water on?
The tap's been put in yesterday. We got a meter in today, I believe.
Okay, so it's about ready to.
They just have to hook it up. Yep.
So we're gonna pour some water in that area. It's bad. What, Kenny?
It's up to Mainscape at this point.
Let's put
Juan
the
said he would have it for me tomorrow.
one. Okay. Let's tell him I'll be looking tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, just
Yeah, I've heard about this for I don't know how long.
Yeah, same. And it's just that's just a highlight. There's other issues you see throughout the community. I think that Mainscape, I hear Mainscape brought up multiple times from multiple board members and multiple community members. I think we really need to be holding them a little bit harder to the fire more than we have in the past. There are boots on the ground when it comes to making the community look good, and we need to make sure they're doing it. Real quick issue on speed enforcement along Gateway Boulevard. I know we have a detail that we pay for, and in the morning time, going from 82 to Daniels is ridiculous, and in the afternoon, going the other way is just as bad. And we think we need to adjust our times for the, I've seen people driving 60, 70 miles an hour through here, and sometimes I can do something about it, sometimes I can't. The tree replacement plan I see is on the schedule, and I'll keep this short. I'm not 100% sure what it's addressing. I think it's just for the section of Gateway Boulevard.
North end.
The north end, okay.
Where we had removed the
Where we had removal.
I would like to see more of a consistency throughout Gateway as a community. Like right now we have the oak tree, oak hammock look in some areas, and then we've got the grouped sable palms in other areas. I can see underneath the power lines where we definitely have a height restriction that we need to be worried about. But outside of that power line area, I would like us to stay more consistent with the rest of Gateway instead of, a tree every 25 to 30 feet of a different variety, maybe a group of sables, kind of like we have back along Griffin, to kind of tie the community together. And then underneath the power lines, some of these shorter trees, some of them I'm completely against. I think bottle brush trees are just terrible and dirty, and not a really big fan of them. But obviously some crepe myrtles and things like that we already have along that bank on the left between the power line easement and Gateway Boulevard. Just consistency, more consistency amongst the whole community is what I'd like to see there. And I don't know about if there's going to be more community input or if this is just the first, hey, this is what we've thought about. But I'm sure over the next few days, I'll be getting a lot of community input, and I'd like to be able to relay that to the board as far as what members of the community are seeing. That way we can maybe not make a decision today, but maybe readdress it in a couple of weeks as far as moving forward.
I'm of the opinion tonight is we're just getting introduced to a proposal. It's nowhere near
That's
that,
my understanding as
deal
well. We
yet.
don't have costs or volumes or anything like that.
Because right off the bat, the only tree that's in there that passes for the 700-foot run across the FPL is the bottle brush. It's the only one, because it's the only one that stays at 15-foot height. We can't have anything greater than 15 feet in the FPL. So I mean, we got some things to talk about.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
One question for the board. Does Gateway have a landscape work group that Jim might be heading? I mean, do we have a forum, an actual forum for getting resident input?
Not at this
And
time. We had at one point.
That we might want to consider doing that, headed up by our president's council, if they would adopt.
So you mean like a landscape or a tree committee?
We're
arborist committee?
Yeah, whatever resources we have in the residents, you'd be surprised at the knowledge of the resident base. And if you had a committee, when Matt has ideas like that, like preferring one tree over another or one palm, to give Jim some input and direction, and it's either a good direction or it's not. But I mean, at least they'd have an opportunity rather than just taking a shot. That's what's presented. If we can get out in front of it and create a 5-year plan or something, we're currently doing that in Pelican, and we'll see where it goes. But I mean, I think it's a good idea.
This is just the tip of the iceberg. Is this first run?
Absolutely.
Because we got other places to go.
But it's an old community, and we're going to have to turn over the plants and things. And
so what
might be a good idea to do that.
Do we have to?
I would suggest have a committee. I think then you just have a resolution at the next board meeting, setting the parameters and the number and the quorum, all those matters.
It's an informal group.
And I'd put,
give them input.
If I could just jump in for a second. Yeah, just really quick. I think I know me personally, I've been a big advocate of leveraging the community in these committees. And we've seen it work in Gateway Greens, we've seen it work in Pelican, we've seen it work in Stony Brook and some other areas. So I think it's definitely something we should be looking into, not only in landscaping, and we've done it in other areas with, roads and ponds and that kind of stuff, but I think we need to really expand on that. But I want to just quickly just comment on the last thing Matt was saying around types of trees. So I know that, and I'm hoping we'll discuss this a little bit when we have the presentation, but I know we're looking to address a certain stretch right now, but I think what we need is a style guide or some type of landscaping, style plan. So we have an understanding of what plants we want to stay consistent with throughout Gateway. Now, I know sometimes the soil and different things can determine what type of plant you might use in a certain area, but I think what we want to do is oaks are a big part of our identity, but I think we need to expand on that into other types of plants and trees and create a style guide, because you need that in order to create a much larger, landscaping, plan if it's a 3, 5, 10-year plan. So I think you got to start with, what our style is and then adapt that to a much larger plan. And maybe we'll have time to talk about that during the presentation, or at least maybe if we can resurrect or we can create this, committee, it's something we can continue to talk about in an ongoing basis.
You think you put together something to start with this committee? I think at this point in time, let's stick to the trees, bite off more than we can chew, because that's going to be a challenge in and of itself. And it's something that needs to be done.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
I'd say trees and maybe trees and hedges might be a good starting point. Maybe trees is the first priority, and then maybe.
I'm trying to save the board from adjudicating this plant versus that plant and defer that to Jim and a committee that he creates and come to us with proposals. Let's take
Well,
the
working
macro.
with the arborist.
Well,
Yeah.
whatever makes
Yeah.
up that, but we just come with different proposals where they include what's best, what the soil is, all those kind of things. It'll
Okay.
streamline our process.
But we're gonna be continuing this meeting to next week. So next Tuesday. So let's have something to be able to talk about that on that meeting.
Thanks for letting me know.
You'll be requesting.
Just pull that one out.
That was like really like in there, like, wow.
You'll be
Yeah.
requesting.
Wow.
Thank you, man.
But can you start putting together something in, because somehow we got to get this a notice out to get volunteers.
Well, yeah, and I don't think it's gonna happen by next week, but if we get the foundation started.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good move. Next.
Any other?
There, no other one, no
Okay.
emails or faxes or chats or anything, so we're good. Did I cover it all?
What's next? Okay, staff reports, district attorney.
A couple of items, one just quick items. And Mr. Tinkle did sort of get ahead of me on this one. And at the end of this meeting, I will be requesting that this meeting be continued to 4:00 PM next Tuesday, April 26, 2022. I desire advice concerning the pending litigation involving the Gateway Services Community Development District versus Line Inc., doing business as Line Waterworks, Lee County Circuit Court Case 22-CA-000466 in the Lee County Circuit Court, and requesting a closed door session 4 PM or soon thereafter as possible. And at the end of this meeting, we'll continue this, request this meeting be continued to 4 PM on April 26th.
And then have the closed door after we finish the business.
We can do that, or we can set the time at 5 o'clock for the closed door if we want to do the board meeting at 4. We can do that, but we can do that at the end of this.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
also, that's on that issue. Another issue is Laura was served today, Laura, was it? Or
I got them today,
It's
yes.
been such an interesting week. Lee County, we all sort of anticipated this. Lee County, as part of the roundabout construction, needs to acquire additional right-of-way in Fairway Lakes Office Park. So Lee County's filed an eminent domain action against that property owners association to acquire the parcel and property that Lee County needs to do the roundabout because of the geometry.
Wait a minute, which west side of the road?
Correct. North part.
The north
roadway.
part's owned.
Actually, the road, actually, it's part of the roadway track they want to take.
At Griffin here, the new one?
Mhm.
Correct.
Yeah, but the guy, the property where Denny Grimes' office at,
I don't know. It's just,
when you're looking west, it's to the right. That's a guy named Sam Cercelli owns that.
but the property that they're looking, I don't want to get into the weeds on the
Yeah.
detail, but it's a roadway portion of the roadway track and a little bit of other property. That's Fairway Lakes. So they're suing the Fairway Lakes Association, which we know is a
It's
dissolved,
dissolved.
but that's Lee County, how they want to handle that. And district is named only as a potential lien holder because of our assessment authority. So that shouldn't take much effort on our part.
Not our decision, just information.
Well, I don't think we have much of a role in it.
But the issue is that they want to, the right of ways are 150 feet, 75-foot half. They want to go outside that and purchase
I'll
additional
give you
property.
a copy of this.
Okay.
Okay, then you can see that. That's just more for information.
That's going to be a hot
I just
issue.
sent it to him this morning because I just got it this morning.
But that's.
I think we talked about this like maybe 3 years ago, saying that needed to be done to make this work. So maybe they're
Yeah,
finding
we have
that out.
20 days to respond, and we can always get extensions, but I guess from the district's perspective, it's no great impact.
Okay.
The next other item is, I don't know if you want to do it today or wait until you have more opportunity to review the proposed red line revisions to the permit criteria manual.
Yeah, I'd like to have a little more time on that one,
Okay.
that's for sure.
So we'll defer that to the next board meeting. When is that, Laura?
May 2nd,
We'll have
May
that as a.
5th, May
May
5th,
5th.
May
May
5th.
5th, we'll have that as an agenda item, consideration of revisions to the permit criteria manual. So you have more time to review the red line version, maybe the whole document.
Yeah. I agree.
I'm fine with that also. Then at that time also, we might have the proposed revisions to the utility rule with regard particularly as to the point of connection, point of delivery issues.
Are any of these something that is imminent that we need to change, or these are just convenient things that we want to get done and off the
I
books?
think Kenny will tell you that as to some.
He's shaking his head, but I didn't get which
I
one.
think he would say that as to the permit criteria manual, certain aspects of it regarding requiring above ground vault,
Yep.
requiring certain types
For the
of.
new developments going.
Those
into
are
development, sure.
Get that done as
We
quickly as
have
possible.
possibly 3 more lift stations coming in.
Okay, so then we want to definitely get this
Yeah.
on the agenda then for that.
Right.
not
What's the
extended
timeline
meeting.
when they would file for the permit? Because that's, the driver is to have the criteria manual in effect before they apply, correct?
Yes, and we have a pre-meeting, we've had a pre-meeting with Worthington and with North Haven, pre-meetings. But they have not officially,
So we know it's coming.
it's coming.
So the question
So we
for
were
us
gonna-
is sooner rather than later.
And we have let them both know that we prefer the vaulted, like the what.
Yes,
what
we
like.
discussed that with them
Yeah,
at
so
the,
although it's not written that way in the permit criteria.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we have to delay it. I'm a little unclear. What's
Well,
the
I guess today's, from the standpoint of the board reading the revisions,
Yeah,
I
we're
have
looking at it.
difficulty with the board tabling that to next board meeting, provided we get authorization to advertise for the rule-making hearing, the adoption hearing.
That's
And
what
we can do that.
We can do that next Tuesday, real quick.
Okay,
Or
and
you can
then
do
we
that
need to do
maybe-
it Tuesday. All I'm saying is, I've read it, it's not that much.
In other words, if the board would grant authority today for us to place the ad
About I could.
For
I don't have a
the-
problem with that,
for the public hearing,
for the hearing.
for the
Okay.
adoption of the amended rule,
I'll make
And-
that motion.
and then we will have the proposed rule amendments by next Tuesday, so the public can see those.
Okay, I so moved
And I
that
will,
we do.
and I will
That'll
schedule,
speed it up a little bit.
And I'll second.
I'll schedule that at the earliest available time with the recognizing the advertising time frame. So it says 28 days, I like to do 30 days.
Yeah.
And we had the advertisement in the paper the last couple of weeks indicating that we were going to take that action tonight.
That's the first step.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the second step is actually advertising for the public hearing.
So we have a motion and a second of going on ahead and doing that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Is that 5-0?
5-0.
5-0.
It is
That's what I
5-0.
heard. Okay,
Thank you.
Tony, go ahead.
Nothing else.
Is that it? Is Stephen on the line?
Hey, good afternoon, Ed. This is Stephen Agapi. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, you're up.
All right. Stephen Agapi, Tetra Tech District Engineer. We also have Fred Middle. He's on site today. He's got a couple items that he wants to discuss with the board. First up, I've got it's some meeting minutes for a meeting that took place 2 weeks ago with South Florida regarding the Pelican Preserve Boardwalk. In summary, South Florida, for us to get permission to use the boardwalk, as it has been historically used with golf carts, we would have to apply for a permit. It would be a completely new permitting process, and there are two main points that the district would be reviewing with that permit application. The first being, is the boardwalk suitable and safe and meets all requirements as far as width is concerned to have golf carts on the boardwalk, and then two, the environmental impact. So we had a meeting, we talked back and forth, and there wasn't an opportunity for them to just allow us to use the boardwalk the way it has been used historically. The intent of the permit from its beginning was for this boardwalk to only be pedestrian use. So to allow golf carts is to them is a big change, and that's why it's going to require a permit application.
So we're essentially, we are asking for an application to get a waiver to do this.
Yeah, so the intent of the meeting was just to see, like where they stood on this, like how hard it would it be to get the use authorized for golf carts the way it has been historically.
Okay.
It's not going to be easy. I mean, it's going to take some effort and dollars to get that approved, if at all. They didn't say there was any guarantees it would get approved, but there is a shot at it. So the question is, does the board want to pursue that? There are two parts to this. One being the width of the boardwalk. Does it meet all the requirements? Is it wide enough? It is narrower than it used to be with the new construction. And then the second part would be the environmental stuff, where you'd have to hire an environmental specialist. They'd have to do a review of the preserve, the wetland, and rank it. And then they would have to look at what would happen if they were to allow the golf carts and then re-rank the preserve based on that new use. And then based on that degradation, you would have to go buy credits, like mitigation credits for the wetland that you're impacting.
But there's no guarantee that we go through and jump through all these hoops that we're going to be granted this permission.
Correct.
Bill? Something Phil Measy's, would like to hear the input from what the locals think on this.
Yeah, Phil Measy, Pelican Preserve. I think that we need to decide first, do we really want to allow the golf carts back on the thing? And that's an issue that I'd like the PPAC to take up before we start pursuing some elaborate.
That's an issue I'd like PPAC to take up before we make the decision.
Exactly. So, Tony has submitted recommendations with regard to the boardwalk, which I think are fine. We need interim rules to be set up. We need the board to set up some interim rules. But as far as what exactly we're going to pursue with South Florida Water Management District to alter the rules, I think we need to think about that a little more before we go into anything elaborate.
I think maybe somehow, some way there'd be a meeting to where Stephen or somebody that's knowledgeable in this, it sounds like Stephen's the guy, is make a presentation to PPAC and basically tell them the pros and cons and what the cost of this is going to be, and get your guys' input of whether you want to chase this or not.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that needs to be, because we've gotten a lot of feedback from the community and much of it is saying they like it without the golf carts on it.
It has been surprising.
Yes.
And now it could be that it's just that it's not something you can say is predominant because we haven't had that many, but we've probably had at least 100 people who responded, which is quite a lot. And the majority of them probably don't want those golf carts.
Stephen, what's the timeline on when?
Well, Ed, before we go there, wait a minute, there's one other factor that we have not addressed. And that is South Florida. And Stephen, you correct me if I'm stating this wrong. South Florida wasn't even interested in discussing ADA. As they said in the meeting, that's not their item. Their item is environment.
What Bob's talking about is Tony found some ADA language that references golf carts as a alternate mobility device. I'm not sure if I use the right terms there, but essentially says golf carts can be used by disabled people, to get around. Obviously, there are limitations to that. You can't be using that, inside buildings or whatnot, but you can use, powered wheelchairs. So there are some, obvious constraints to that. When we brought that up, South Florida's point was, there's an ADA perspective and then there's a resource perspective. And from their point of view, the resource perspective outweighs the ADA requirements. So right now, as the boardwalk stands, wheelchairs can use it, powered wheelchairs can use it.
I still like the idea.
Is that right, Tony? That's not my understanding.
The definition of wheelchair and ADA includes both manual and power.
I understand that.
Yeah, and so since I was not at the meeting because the general counsel's office from South Florida had canceled last minute, and so I wasn't there, but there is a definition of the ADA. Wheelchair is defined as both manual and power assisted wheelchair.
So
they clarified in the meeting that powered wheelchairs were allowed.
Okay.
But not, as it says in ADA, electric golf cars.
I'd still
That's
like.
correct.
Well, yeah, and the electric golf.
Back to PPAC and get back to us as to what the feelings of the community are.
Right, and the use of the electric golf cars, as I understood it, is only for people who need it for mobility.
Absolutely.
It is not a blanket general approval of golf cars. So I think we need to take a look at, there are certainly ADA things that we have to conform to as we look at what we're going to apply for, and the golf cars are part of it, as are is the question, and it comes up, I guess, I don't know where we're going to get to it on the agenda, but bicycles. Are bicycles allowed? And that's something that I think we can choose to or not choose to include.
As far as our position, I think I'd like to see and have everything that's on this issue addressed and discussed to come back to us as to which is an up and which is a down. So we know where we're going on this.
I totally agree with you, Ed, but one of the issues that we should look at, I think, and I think PPAC would agree with it, is if we take the step one with the environmental study, just to see what that impact is. It may or may not be great for the mitigation. There are funds remaining in the the bond money. It could more than cover that minimal look. I think it's worth time to at least look,
If the
know what
group,
we're
if the
talking
group
about.
wants to spend, take that opportunity. That's kind of, my deal is I don't have a dog in that fight. I want to hear what your people want.
So, I guess we'd take it up to PPAC. That's the appropriate place.
Mhm.
And if they
Exactly.
want to do it, I think they can
Get
do
back
it
to us then.
without cost.
Mhm.
To at least take it that first step. Is there a big difference? Is there no difference? And then decide. Because I completely agree that we need to look at this. But there's one thing that you can say, maybe part of the boardwalk from one entrance to the other might be appropriate, but another part going out to the observation area where it wouldn't be appropriate.
Yeah, there are alternate,
There's
there are
it's more
alternates.
to it than just a quick yes
Exactly.
and no. And the last component that I'll throw out just so the board knows, and I know PPAC is aware, if it is decided to restrict the access to the mobility of golf carts and things, then we got to provide parking for those people that go from their homes to the entrances so they can then go hobble on down. And there's no other space out there right now other than conservation area. I don't think South Florida is going to give us a parking lot in the conservation area.
I don't even think I'd go barking up that tree.
Well, you got to adjust it because it's been brought up to us.
Yeah.
Residents have said that to PPAC.
Right.
So it's not easy. And I certainly hope it goes back to PPAC for a recommendation.
But we do need to, at this point, publish some interim rules that are in the recommendation that Tony made.
Tony, ball's in your court.
So that
You have
we
some
can,
language?
so that we can come up with something to put out to the community while we're working on this process of applying to the South Florida Water Management District. That's not, that's not imminent that we have to do it right away, but we need to have
I did
some
not
good
bring
ones.
that memo with me, and I don't know if the board, I think the board saw that last board meeting, I believe. I'm not sure if it was in the agenda packet. What I would suggest is, since the board's going to continue this meeting to next Tuesday at 4, and we lose our quorum in
Yeah, half an
46
hour.
minutes. Yeah. Our in-person quorum, that item also be tabled and continued to the meeting.
I guess I'm a little disturbed. I thought this was going to be discussed today. We need to get something on the boards. We need to get something that tells people what the rules are today until we are able to go to South Florida.
Do we have?
We'll talk about it.
Oh, yes, it's been, I think it was distributed earlier, wasn't it? I think, Laura?
What?
The memo to the board about the boardwalk?
Memo to the-
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You mean the memo to the board about the boardwalk?
Yes.
That was distributed for the last.
Last
it was in the
meeting.
last board pack.
Yes.
The board had it at the last meeting.
So do we need to take action on that right now? Or that's what you're asking?
That's what I'm asking
Asking for direction from Tony.
from
For
Tony.
specific language.
That we can.
Where we are today.
Where we are today, so we can put something out so that.
I don't have a memo. If we can get a copy of my memo, if I can try to find that, and then the board can have those recommendations at the end as far as interim rules that the staff had discussed as to certain, well, I think the board needs to have all that also. And that's not just me, it's the board. So if we could, Laura, if you can
I'll
maybe
send
ask
it.
Georgia
Yeah.
to make copies of that. For
want
the
it right
board,
now?
and then we can continue on.
This is what you're looking for today, is to get that interim.
Well, some of them, recognizing that some of these involve South Florida. I
Right.
think what Phil is saying is that there have been issues about people taking bicycles out there. And, well, let me back up a bit. There was a sign placed prior to the boardwalk that's a pedestrian use only. It was placed without the approval of this board or
Or
notification. to this
PPAC or
board
anybody.
Or anybody. It was just.
So what we're
placed
trying to do is we're trying to generate interim rules.
Exactly,
Or policy.
exactly. And some of the,
Policies for the utilization of.
Do we?
and that we can publish so people know them, because not only do we have to talk about things like bicycles, which we can make a choice about, there are certain rules, there are certain ADA rules that have to be put into
Okay,
effect,
but
and
I
we
would-
need
I
to
would- but I would
articulate
suggest
those.
that for today, those are too complicated to address today, the ADA. The item for today, I think, would be appropriate about fully allowing, the board's already said this, fully allow wheelchairs and manually powered mobility aids under the ADA, to the extent that you can do that without having golf cars. You know,
Is the ADA in this deal that we're talking
it's
about?
in the full memorandum, but not in the.
Okay,
summary
not in the
page.
interim deal. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other part is applying assessment criteria and factors outlined in the rules, the ADA rules, And again, and I said, in doing so, solicit the input of the Pelican Reserve Advisory Committee. So, I mean, I think what Phil is mainly pushing for today is considering banning the use of bicycles, skateboards, rollerblades on the boardwalk. But here it says after receipt of a recommendation from PPAC. And I don't know if PPAC has a recommendation yet.
Well, no, we're waiting.
Is the dog chasing the horse?
Well, yeah, I mean, we were waiting. I thought we had to wait until this recommendation and request in your memo was approved by the board before we could go forward with any of this.
So we need,
Because it says consider banning the use of bicycles.
After
Everyone's waiting for Tony to come up with language.
No, sir. Oh, okay. I disagree.
Okay.
What it says is continue to fully allow wheelchairs and manually powered mobility aids, like manual wheelchairs. Then we go on to talk about applying criteria from ADA, which in my opinion, the board's not in a position to make that analysis today, requires some other factors or
I would agree with that.
And then there, advise South Florida, that's not on the table for today because of the other discussion. Continue pursuing modifications to the permit. I've already said, let PPAC consider whether or not we're going to do that. The last one is consider banning the use of bicycles, skateboards, rollerblades, et cetera, on the boardwalk after receipt of a recommendation from PPAC. Now, if the board wants to in the interim, and the board has the ability as a policy, in my opinion, ban the use of bicycles, skateboards, rollerblades on the boardwalk pending a formal recommendation from PPAC. The board has a full authority, in my opinion, to do that today.
Would that be the sense of what you'd like to see us do?
Yes, I would, and I would like if we can publish something to explain to people that that's one of the rules and that that some of the other ADA rules that are clear, we can know.
Well, it's just only item number 1 and then the last item that he spoke with.
Right,
So
the
those are the
ADA,
only two items
the
that
ADA
you're
is much more
gonna add,
complicated.
yeah.
can we just highlight out on that form what you
1 and
want us
5.
to approve at this time? And then we make the motion to approve that. And the ones that are ADA related.
There are two, I would suggest there are two. One is continue to fully allow wheelchairs.
Yep.
And
Manually
powered mobility aids other than golf.
Yep.
Okay, 2 and on the boardwalk, primarily because that's number 1. Number 2, ban the use of bicycles, skateboards, rollerblades on the boardwalk. And ask PPAC for a further recommendation as to that.
Phil, would that suffice? Just that?
That would suffice.
Let's just make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah. Let's just do it that way and make sure.
Okay, so that then Tony will feel that he can come up with language that we can put out publicly.
That's the language that's going to
I think we just did that. Yeah.
I think
Yes,
that's the
okay,
language
well, that's
we're
fine.
gonna get.
That's fine.
Okay.
You're gonna pen and cross it out.
I know what it is.
So you're going to memorialize those two things
The
that we just made the motion to
These are board
approve
policies, yes.
for policy. Okay, any further discussion?
No, and then to close it out, then the last step will be that they'll present that to PPAC. At the next meeting. And then they're going to discuss whether they want to even pursue the other
deal
obstacles that South Florida threw up. Okay.
Well, yeah, not only that, but also, I think.
I thought I had it so summarized.
Well, I would suggest that PPAC would also, I'll hear about this later, that PPAC also evaluate the part about making recommendations to the board as a whole, applying the factors outlined in the rules, the federal rules about power-driven mobility devices, because there are safety considerations, but that's up to PPAC. I would just say that's a leader issue.
I don't know that they're
with the engineer assistance, I'd say.
It may come back, it sounds like from what you said, that this thing may not go any further anyway. Possibility.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a motion and a second to approve these two items. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Bill,
No,
Doug?
smile on his face, but
I didn't hear anything from the other two, but I'm taking it as a 5-0. This one I want concurrence on. Stephen, continue.
Yep, I'll be quick with the last two items that I have. Today I received a courtesy phone call from South Florida. They had a complaint about shoreline erosion off of Mahogany Run. They're going to go out and take a look at it. Essentially, it was a nice call to have from South Florida. Instead of issuing a non-compliance for erosion, if we can show that the district is working to remedy the situation, we can avoid a non-compliance on that. So
What
I
pond?
think Laura's already
I think it's 107, isn't it?
No, it's
109.
9.
Yep.
And we're going to be getting, I
They're
can
in
tell you,
phase
the
3.
jungle drums are beating loud, at least over in Gateway Greens. People are.
Yeah.
Is 109 on our list? Our
For
priority
phase
list?
3.
It was
Phase
phase 3.
three,
It needs
so-
to be reevaluated and moved up. They've got immense escarpment.
Worse than what's
Right.
currently,
Split drop offs.
worse than what's currently in phase 2?
Somebody else needs to make that call.
Okay, because why wasn't it?
We need to look at that. But
Okay.
I know about this one. I knew this was coming.
Yeah, I got an email today from them too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephen was copied on it.
They're going to go the route, and if they have to, force these things to be accelerated. They're tired of waiting.
Yeah, just to touch on that real quick, Bob had some questions there. So the list for phase 2 were established, I think, probably in 2019 when we started the SRF funding process there. We had to write a facilities plan and list the lakes. Went through with that and, got both of those phases approved. We constructed the first half of those phases already, and we're moving into the second half. So, I mean, that was over 3 years ago that list was established. I mean, a lot can change since then. So that's why there's a discrepancy between some of the lake conditions.
Yeah, Stephen, we might want to go back with staff and reevaluate some of those 2s and 3s and see if there's been changes to where we want to shift them for priority.
Right. Moving on to my next item that I have on the agenda, Arborwood Phase 3. This is the stormwater pipe that's outside of the easement. You asked that I prepare a figure and bring that back to you. Hopefully someone can pull that up for me.
This is that little map that's got the red squiggly line showing where it's at.
Yeah, so that's the general location, and I also sent Georgia a JPEG of a zoomed in view that we got from Lennar. It's actually from their survey. So the homeowner got a survey, and this is what their surveyor, found. Lennar marked it up, and so the actual box is 2 feet outside of the easement. You can see that behind the property, like behind the home. So about 65 feet of pipe is outside of the easement. Originally, they asked for a new drainage easement shown in green. We said no. We don't want to have to maintain a pipe in the future that close to a home. It's less than 6 feet away, and it's about 6 feet deep, so it's not a good location. The bad news is the homes are already built on both sides. They've requested to install a junction box shown in their little yellow squiggly line there. We said a junction box would be fine, just in a different location. We requested that it be installed closer to the back end of the public utility easement. And the junction box is needed because instead of pulling out all the stormwater pipe all the way up to the road and disturbing all the utilities it crosses and the gutter and the pavement and all of that, it's better to just stop the pipe inside the easement away from the road and then install new pipe. So I guess we just need direction from the district or the board on how to proceed. My recommendation would be to install the junction box near the public utility easement and install stormwater pipe, down the center line of the easement. Lennar is planning to dig up and relocate the existing pipe and storm box. Rightfully so, there's some concerns about digging that close to the home. So there's been some talk about maybe grouting the pipe in place and abandoning it and installing a new pipe down the center line of the easement.
So
Stephen, when they had a problem like this and it went under a building in Pelican, the remedy was to put in new piping.
Yeah.
But then they filled the old abandoned piping with concrete. Is that part of the proposal?
Yeah, so I mean, that's something that staff and I have talked about. We all agree that it's not a bad idea to do that instead of digging it up. Lennar right now is proposing to reuse the same pipe. So I don't really know. I don't know. It's kind of tricky because it's outside of the easement. It's kind of between them and the homeowner, and I don't really want to get Gateway in trouble by telling them to do one thing or the other.
Stephen, why can't they, where that yellow circle's at, or somewhere to, I don't even know what north and south is on this, to the right, and put in a deflection manhole and then bring the storm sewer back online into the existing easement? Now, it does mean that they're going to have to fill the old pipe up and put in a new pipe, but I don't see any other solution.
I agree with
Yeah,
you.
that's the plan. Yeah, the plan is to put in, as you said, a deflection, by using a junction box to intercept the two different pipes.
But it require a new pipe and filling the existing one that you're going to abandon.
I agree. That would be
Yeah.
my suggestion. Yeah, Tony?
My suggestion is that we not get into what happens to the pipe outside the easement. We don't want to have any
Liability.
indication that we have any ownership or control other than that pipe is not the district's. Otherwise, we'll be ending up taking somebody's property because it's outside an easement. So I think probably best that it be
And
removed.
not even recommending to the owner that that's a possibility. I mean, that sounds a little.
Well, that's
I know something
I
you
know
don't
what you're,
know.
I know
Yeah.
what you're saying, Tony, but we're also here to protect our homeowners.
But is there a third-party purchaser already for that, Stephen, or is Lennar still the owner of that house on lot 33?
There's a homeowner present, I believe.
Is or isn't?
It's occupied from my knowledge.
How involved have they been in this?
I'd feel much better because we have the horsepower behind us to tell Lennar, do it.
To take out the pipe
And
that's
then
not
that-
in the easement, because we have to be
Yeah.
careful whenever the conveyances come by too, that we look at the list to make sure that that segment of pipe is not on the list of what's being conveyed to us
Yeah.
by a bill of sale.
I
mean,
think
that's-
we give Lennar the choice. You either take the pipe out or you fill the pipe, but you got to do something.
Yeah.
Doing nothing isn't an option.
Well,
We're not gonna accept
The
it.
only reluctance to take the pipe out is if it impacts the home, give the homeowner the choice. Because there's some risk there of having it filled, leaving it below, it's all below ground, nobody will see anything.
If I'm the homeowner, I'm going to say, I don't want to take that. I'm not.
I like to
knowledgeable
take it
do
out, I'd fill it, right?
I'd fill it right
Well,
now.
and
and done with
and
it.
I guess if the homeowner's willing to do it, I would suggest that they sign a hold harmless indemnification on behalf of themselves and the successors and the signs, because somebody's going to come knocking on the district door and say, you all approve that to remain in place outside your easement. And we're
Craft what you need to craft, Tony, to
Yeah,
protect.
but
us.
that's my concern is people always try to come knocking on the door of local government.
My biggest concern is protect the homeowner.
Well, first of all, get this thing corrected.
Yeah, Lennar did
And then
something
let
wrong.
Lennar
Lennar
figure
should
out
fix
how
it.
they're going to
Right.
protect us on
Yes,
what they did wrong.
maybe a guarantee from Lennar also.
Do you want a motion to that effect, or what do you
Well,
want?
Stephen, what's your recommended engineering solution?
Whatever is least likely to get Gateway in trouble. I don't know. I think filling it with flowable fill in place and removing the structure, like leaving the pipe in place, filling that with flowable fill or grout, and removing the inlet structure in the back of the yard. I think that's the safest bet. That way you're not digging up anywhere close to that foundation, and they're going to be like vibrating all around. There could be hairline cracks showing up in the side of the wall, and I feel like doing that is probably least impactful. I don't know if that's the best situation.
Put in that deflection manhole and build or lay these 65, 85, 90 feet of pipe anyway, because it's in a tight deal and you're down 6 feet deep. So let's don't beg for trouble.
I would suggest as part of that, if that's the solution, that two conditions, Lennar obtains the consent, written consent of the property owner to allow that pipe. Lennar gets that, to stay in place and be filled. And that Lennar also provide the district with the hold harmless indemnification. And
Sounds good to
that,
me.
anything that may arise from that.
So
I agree.
moved.
Motion from Bob to do that. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 By the way, Stephen, how big is that pipe?
Right, minimum.
It's
What is it?
hold on a
Got-
second.
Or,
I think it's 24.
24.
It's a 24? Okay.
I guess it's better than 42 like last time.
It's a 15 inch. It's 15 inches.
15 inch, okay.
Okay.
So it's just a
42
connector
last
then.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm done, but Fred has got 2 items. He's got an update on the bond validation, and he has an action item for a change order on the Lower Hawthorne well. So I'm going to hand it over to Fred now. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Stephen.
Good afternoon, Brad Middle, Tetra Tech. Can you hear me okay? Maybe I'll cover the action item first because I think the bond discussion, or how would you prefer that, Laura?
That's fine. Let me find it here.
Action items, a couple. The action item is an amendment to Tetra Tech's agreement to move the location of a Lower Hawthorne well. We began design that well, which is actually just outside the window here almost. And the two locations, they're permitted wells, the Lower Hawthorne. So you have two permitted wells that have not been constructed yet. So we attempted to proceed with both of those locations, one after the other, and they both had problems associated with them. A lot of utilities, the access. One of them was inside your plant property here, and the other one's behind the church across the street. It would encroach into their ball field, and so the third option was to put the well back here near an existing well at the back of the soccer fields. That's a shallow sandstone aquifer. We'd put the deeper well next to it, but it's there's a carrier pipe that would bring it back here to the plant. So it was a much more streamlined approach. But our change order, our amendment is to we'd have to re-permit the well location, move the well. So that'd have to go through the water management district. We'd have to do some groundwater modeling. That would be through our consultant, Ardeman and Associates, and we'd have to recoup some
Additional change design.
design, yes, electrical and some other things, survey and the like. So it's, I think that in the end, it'll be a more cost-effective location and easier to implement.
They're trying to fight the obstacles going the other way.
Yes, yes, yeah, it should go in quite easily back there, I think, across my fingers.
Any questions of Fred on
No.
this?
Nope.
Motion to approve, this
Second.
change order one.
Thank you.
A second.
You second it? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank
Is this
you.
budgeted money already? I should have asked.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
question. Where is the 38 coming from? What's this in right now?
Sorry.
Do we have
Give
a
me a
contingency
minute.
in this account?
Hey, give me a minute. It's gonna have to be a reserve draw because we budgeted real tight for that.
Or put
Couldn't we
in
take
next
it
year?
from that 350,000 that we had, that we'd already deducted 50,000 instead of?
No,
going to the
that's a
reserve?
different fund because this is utilities.
Oh, but we don't have the ability to move it?
It's
That's
two separate, it's
complicated.
collected, yeah,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
utilities funding comes from the water
Yeah,
bill
it's
and the other one
different.
comes
Okay,
from the
no.
Well,
assessment.
we have to, we'll put it next year.
Okay. Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, the other conflict over there was overhead power lines, just to recall that. So yeah, there was a lot of challenges. So we got in the board packet, I believe, a draft engineer's report for the 10-year bond validation, and also the table you have displayed right now. The report really is going to follow behind once the projects and the timeline and the appropriation of all these funds. This is really the crux of getting to the end point. It's to discuss this and reach consensus on what we have in front of us here. And we have a couple more weeks, is I think our timeline to get to a final or a draft final report. The report, take it for what it is. It needs work still, but it really will fall out of this discussion.
The last time we did this, we had this format here, and you got me sucked into that as accepting it, and then we changed over to this other format.
Sure.
What is there a way that we can take what we have on the screen and get back into these categories so that we make sure that we don't miss anything as far as
I like
items?
it. I agree with you, Ed.
And then the other part of it is, and Chelsea and I talked a little bit about this earlier this afternoon, is I like to see a capital plan to where we see the dollar value of each of the items in the year in which they're anticipated. Then I can always come back and say, hey, I want to debt finance that. If it's $100,000, it's 10 years, I can go 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 and do it. But at least I know in 10 years from now, 2032, that there is a $100,000 item for that deal. So I'm trying to separate cash flow and the actual capital expenditure. Is the way that we can get back sort of what you had on this first rendition, and then have the financing as a separate issue, the cash flow.
First question, first answer. Yes, we can get back to the previous template. This is all me. I'll take, I'm just trying to.
You were just taking the stuff that we fed to you as extras and.
From Laura, from you guys, from staff, from myself, working with Fred. So yes, we can get back to that template. We can talk with the bonding agency about what you just mentioned and what we talked about today previously. Chelsea O'Reilly, forgot to identify myself, sorry. We'll talk to them through that. So the point for direction for staff moving forward, and I know my first day isn't officially until May 16th, but this is time sensitive, so I wanted to get involved. This is your 10,000 foot view. And if we can stop moving this has been a moving target. If we can all agree today that this is the final list, we can go back and get true numbers. We can true up information. We can go into details, because Fred needs this to stop moving and us to look at it from a staff perspective. We don't want to put 5 projects in 1 year. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves. And we also don't want to overwhelm the community. We don't want to tear up, and repave 25 streets in 1 year. So if it's in red, bear with me with the colors. What's in red is new and what has been edited. The couple items that are highlighted in yellow are kind of really questions or direction from you all. If you can agree today that this list, again, instead of calling a swing set out, we're going to call it playground equipment. That way we don't box ourselves into what would be an eligible expenditure under this bond validation. So that's why you see very vague details on this 10-year report. Fred then will have to take that 10-year report and do a 3-year report for that specific, the first 3-year series that will go out, and that will go into further detail. So by May 21st, you're going to have 2 reports, the 10-year, final 10-year, and then the series, which once we can finalize this in the next 2 weeks, bless Fred's heart, we'll be finalizing the report to get back to you, because we are on a deadline with the bonding and through legal with advertising. So generally, I don't know if you want to go line item by line item, or if you want to skim them. We did get some, I think we got 2, Laura Wright, 2 board members that sent in information. Mr. Tinkle, you were one. Mr. Geppert, you were the other.
Well, let me jump in. First question is, I know catching you cold turkey, are you pretty confident that we have everything identified that needs to be identified? You feel pretty good?
Laura and I have a meeting tomorrow morning. I wanted to give her a break coming back from vacation. I think so.
Okay.
If we missed a building, we can incorporate that under one of these line items,
Okay,
I believe.
that's my first question. My second question is, I agree with you because I put it in there. I was doing it too fast. Under the irrigation, the FPL, that is a utility issue. That shouldn't be there. That can come out. Aerators, new construction versus / installation replacement. Are we talking about the aerators for the ponds aeration?
I believe so.
That's capital. Why would there be any question of it not being capital?
It was Chelsea.
So this is, so the point, and this still, once you all finalize this list, this has to pass muster from our legal counsel, bond legal counsel, the bonding agencies. So they may come back and say, Chelsea board, this is a capital expenditure. This isn't, a 10-year true CIP plan. This is more of an R&R. So that if you want to put it on here to see if they'll cover it under the bond.
To me, it's brand new.
Yeah, it is.
It's capital.
It's capital.
It's capital.
And that's what the big argument that we had.
Yeah, it's brand new. It's not there now.
Not.
If it were aerators that were in replacement, I'd probably still argue that it's capital.
We got 4 or 5 out of 58 ponds. So this is a capital item.
That's my point. That's my point.
If that's how the board wants to move, then we'll do that.
And
that's what we decided last year. Yes.
And then the third one you had yellow, need or covered under below. Yeah, that's kind of, I threw in that road resurfacing simply because at the time we were doing this was 20 years, and the roads that we did, they would be within their service life. If we're going to stick to a 10-year plan, I could argue taking that line item out because we're not going to trigger the 25-year life in the first 10-year period.
Right, because we just did the Sacker Drive paving. It's done.
Well, I'm talking about the other 5 roads.
Oh, sure, the other ones, yeah.
And those were done in what, Tony, 16, 17 when we did the turnover?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no. The roads, all of our roads that we own, we did them before the turnover. So that's
15, 16,
15, 16, 17. So they've still got 22 years beyond that. So the point is, they're not going to fall in this first 10 years. So that line item, in my opinion, could come out.
I would err on the side of caution and leave it in.
Yeah, I think what Chelsea, and I
That's
don't want to jump in, but
No
I think that the team recommendation and approach is, I think Chelsea's also put as much as you can in this particular bond issue, in this particular validation.
Oh, that was the direction. That's right.
Pie in the sky.
You can't be wrong.
No, because if you recall, a lot of the prior bond issues, they may have validated $100 million worth of bonds, say, but only 55 were ever issued. And then you don't have to keep going back to court to validate for 20-year borrowings. That's the beauty of it. So I think that's what.
And that's how we approached it.
Correct. I think that's the approach. It's to
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to format it back to the original format. Then we're
Yep,
good.
this was a working
Okay, that sounds
document
great.
It's a whip.
No harm, no foul.
Yes.
If I may, I'd like to point out a couple items to make sure I heard you right on capital items, because things like pool furniture, it's the opinion of some that shouldn't be in there, for example, and we're planning to take it out. So how are you going to react to that? Or we put it into a category that's more generalized? Is that right?
Part of the discussion was whether or not, because you have capital from an accounting perspective, is what our conversations, and others for capital projects from a standpoint of bond issuance. And you have certain equipment and furniture, fixtures and equipment may or may not qualify.
To me, those are a flea on a you-know-what's
Right.
backside. Why are we worried about that?
Well, that's a good, and I appreciate that answer, because if you allow us to take some liberties, that things that you've seen before might not be in there, but they're captured in a big enough number that I think we can deal with at a later date.
Like I said, the only other comment I had was is to put it in the year that we believe it is, and then we can worry about the cash flow. I'm just looking at, if you look at 10 years, what is the total value over a 10-year period based on this assumption that we're going to spend? And
You'll get that at a later date once we can finalize numbers.
Okay.
Yes. And
I'm
so,
good.
so taking,
if you're satisfied, or are you, Laura, yet to tweak it? Most of the stuff I brought up was taken care of.
I think we've covered probably, I'd say 99% of what needs to be on there. And we did have a pretty good roll through yesterday. We spent about half an hour going through this list.
And what you will
But
see
this-
is, as Chelsea mentioned, you will also see, as part of this whole process, you'll have an engineer's report. It's the whole capital project improvement program. And then part of that, for the first bond series issuance, you'll have a supplement that just carves that out. Because then Russ Wire can do his assessment methodology based upon the master, I'll call it, the overall, and then the discrete supplement. Similar to what we did for the SRF file.
Yeah, and now I recall our discussion yesterday. Someone else is going to vet these and can this be included? So we're going to take our best crack at it. Let me just bring up, because like landscaping and signs, we thought that could be legitimate, so it's in there. So the buildings, I don't know if we want to just spend 2 minutes on the buildings, or if it's not even
How are you
necessary.
on time?
We're getting close.
4:15.
Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so far beyond what we've ever had.
Okay, so
I feel good.
it sounds like we're on the right path.
I
as
think
long
we're
as
on
you,
the
as
right
long as the board is good and gives clear direction to staff, that we can continue, and this list pending Laura and my meeting tomorrow will not move anymore. I can almost guarantee you'll have a comprehensive report at the May 21st
This is a
meeting.
stake in the ground.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, and these things are very difficult to get at 100% percentage confidence. So if we just can determine what is our, you know, how much variation are we comfortable with, whether that's plus or minus 5% or 10%, I think as long as we're close, I think we'll be fine.
Okay, any other questions for Fred on this issue? You
Nope.
satisfied? Got your deal? Okay. Going on, we need to wrap up here fairly
Okay,
quickly.
well, item
Wanna
A, we
get
move to the next
manage-
meeting. Item B, I don't have. Do you want to do the tree plan today?
Let's hit the things that we need a decision on today.
Okay.
Are there any things on here that we need a decision
Well,
today?
I
that we
have
can't-
one thing that's not on here that I had sent out to you guys that I had talked to Doug about, and he asked me to queue it up, and that's my salary.
Discussion? Everybody see that? Get that?
Yes,
Questions?
none.
Well, the only question I had is, since we just went through our promotion, I've had this conversation with Laura. Understanding where it is, I think it's more appropriate to bring it up on the anniversary
Well,
day.
here's my thing. When historically, like I mentioned in my memo, when somebody goes into a position, they start at the amount that was put in for the budget for the year. And I did not start at that amount. I started 10,000 under it.
No, I totally understand that, but in my history in business, even though someone moves up a category or a grade level or whatever, it doesn't entitle an automatic adjustment to the minimum. You grow into it.
Yeah, I would disagree with that slightly. I think normally your compensation is adjusted at the time of the promotion because your responsibilities are adjusted. Now there are some times where it may not be occurred or it's tiered, but you know, one of the reasons why I would support this is the fact that, you know, when we did the initial adjustment, we did hold back, I think, some of the compensation to really see how the performance, how the role would evolve and the performance and what we would need during that time period. And I just feel like Laura has not only performed in that assistant district manager role, but also has really been driving some of the district manager responsibility when needed. So I'm in support of it. I think it makes sense. It's the right thing to do at this point, and I don't see any reason why we would delay it.
I also support it. You'd accept that. Getting too much in 1 year is not, in my opinion, physically responsible, but that's an opinion.
Yeah, I think we're setting up a can of worms when you do it that way. I agree with what you said.
Well,
But anyway,
sorry. Go ahead.
somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Motion, just refer to the record. The motion is to effective April 21st, 2022, increase the annual base salary. I can't
Tony,
hear.
I can't hear you, buddy.
The, is the motion to the action requested?
Yes, it is.
And if you could read that, be effective April 21st, 2022.
So the
Increase the annual salary, base salary of Laura Leroy to align with the assistant district manager salary approved by the Board of Supervisors in the FY22 budget. Maintain the additional 1,000 per month for performing as interim district manager until the new district manager starts. Does that work, Laura?
Yes,
So
it's just one more month.
So it's going to effective immediately. It's going to a 95,000 annual basis. And then the 1,000 that we approved at the last meeting will stay on as a monthly
It's just one
amount
more month
until
till Chelsea starts.
till Chelsea starts.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's your motion, Bobby?
That is my motion.
And I think I heard Bill second that.
You are correct. I did.
Correct.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, no, 3-2. Next. And again, it's not on the deal.
It's not on
just the
performance at
timing.
all.
I
Yeah.
understand.
Okay, on that subject, I know you, I just want to bring this up. And I guess it'll be a question for Chelsea. What is your understanding of your role now? Like, because you're technically not working for us, right? So.
Getting close to
You
the
got fired
fire.
for that
That's
one?
what, he's
I get
getting
that.
close to the fire.
Well, let me answer that. I think her capacity right now is
Out of
in
respect, I want
transition.
Chelsea to answer the question.
Stepping into this position, I will be the district manager with Laura by my side as the assistant district manager. She and I are going to have a very candid conversation tomorrow about her responsibilities compared to my responsibilities. And I do intend on taking back some of the duties that she has been doing as the interim district manager. But in my head, I have a plan moving forward, and that's something I'd like to present to the board. Once I do officially come on board, staffing plan, Laura has a lot on her plate, and I really want to take some of that burden off of her, and get her to shine like she should.
As quick as you get that, I know that there's things that's got to be done to do that, but as quick as you can do that and get that somewhat memorialized, can you get that to us in advance so that we can see that? And I don't want to have to do a speed reading on something as important as that. So I'd like to have a little time to think about that.
That staffing plan, that's part of budget. I intend on having that those hard conversations with you all individually.
Great.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Is any other items, Laura, that we need to take that we can't defer until next Tuesday at 4 o'clock?
We already talked to, I got the task authorization. Oh, I do need approval. I will need to move, the budget is at 80,000. And so giving me a tiny bit of wiggle room for the project. It was like, came in at like 119. I'd like to move 40,000 from the reserves to that line in the budget to cover the Lower Hawthorne wells.
Oh, do we have a 2-minute recess?
Okay.
2-minute recess?
Yeah.
Yes.
And get his kidneys fixed.
Kidney recess.
Bio break, that's what we call them.
Well, when I was years ago and used to smoke in the courtroom,
Yeah.
one of the judges would every hour and a half have 90
I
minutes.
can't hear.
It's not pertinent to the issue.
So we're having side discussions while we're waiting for Mr. Gepper to return.
Tony's reminiscing here.
About excuses for breaks in the past. That's what we call it, a 90-millimeter break. Character 82nd Airborne Rule. US.
Are we done? I can't hear anything.
Is there anything that Kenny?
Tony, just.
We have a brief recess, Mr. Guys.
We're just brief recess waiting for Bob to get back from the little boy's room.
I believe, well, I know we're waiting for Bob, but we can wait for him to confirm. But I believe the rest of the updates, can you get?
No, I
Okay.
was asking her, is there anything that we had that has to be done yet today?
Oh, he's back.
He's here.
Okay, so what's left on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, the board is now back in session.
Thank you. We're now back in session. We now have a quorum.
Make it fast,
It's not
make
a
it fast.
voluntary thing anymore. It's mandatory.
The remaining items on the agenda that we did not cover today are the tree plan, the 3 updates for utilities, stormwater, landscape maintenance, and then just approving the consent agenda
And the closed door session.
and the closed door session. Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you.
So where were we when you took off? I forgot where we were at.
Minutes,
We're right on, that's what's on your screen. So we got through, we're tabling,
We're basically tabling the
we're
district management
tabling-
report on down.
No, we can get the consent items. I don't have any issues with that.
Oh, you want to do the consent item?
Yeah, I don't have
Does
that.
anybody
Same
have
here.
any, is that okay to skip down to the consent agenda items?
I mean, they were, at least I didn't have any objections.
Did anybody have any objections to either A or B, 5A or B? Motion to approve the consent agenda items 5A and 5B.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 President Council's meeting, you just got that tentative May 24th, 25th?
yes, we can always talk about that on
Then
Tuesday.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll get that.
just trying to set
agenda
a
for
date
that.
for sure.
Okay, well, then the only other thing is then, Tony, do we need a motion then, continuing this meeting till 4 o'clock next Tuesday? And then at 5 o'clock next Tuesday, we'll go into executive session,
Closed door session.
closed door session for the borderline
Lawsuit. And
lawsuit.
and the location of the meeting will be April 26, 2022 at district offices in Board.
April 26th. Is there,
I'll make that motion.
thank you.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Doug, you gonna be back?
Aye.
I'll take that as a yes. Okay, no. Then a motion, but we're not going to adjourn.
Motions are made and to continue. I think it's already been made.
Yeah, it's been made to continue, so I guess we're done until next
Laura, was
Tuesday.
there a vote on that?
There was not a vote.
Oh, I'm
wait.
sorry.
No, there was not a vote. The last thing you voted on was the consent agenda.
Okay, a motion
I need a second.
has been made and second to continue the meeting till 4 o'clock next Tuesday, the 26th, and a 5 o'clock closed door session for the Ford line issue. There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okey-doke.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
Did it on time.